It kind of felt like the sky was falling for Penn State football recruiting this week. So was it? No, that's just not the case.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
No, believe me, I get the concern because it seemed like every recent Penn State recruiting target was going to another school, but Penn State recruiting is just fine. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, and thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Be a part of the conversation down in the comments section. Let me know your thoughts on the current state of Penn State football recruiting. They got some good news, even though it wasn't a new commitment, but in a way it was. And that's where we start with Kiandrea Barker. And that's why I say, Penn State recruiting is just fine because yes, some commits go elsewhere, but Penn State, the longest standing commitment in the class of 2025, one of the first prospects to commit to this class, and he reaffirmed his commitment. Kiandrea Barker is a very talented running back, and I am glad that he is sticking around because there were the rumors. There was almost the expectation. Some recruiting experts on the national level were anticipating a possible flip to SEC countries from the state of Arkansas, and it looks like Kiandrea Barker is going to stick with Penn State. He says his recruitment is shut down. He did have a visit set up with Arkansas this weekend, so we'll see if that actually is going to happen. But he shuts down his recruitment. So now what does that mean for running backs in this class of 2025? Because the elephant in the room is Alvin Henderson. Okay, what is he going to do? Now, Tyke Hayes seems to be the safest. He's an in-state prospect, okay, and he's gradually moving up the recruiting rankings. Now you have Kiandrea Barker all in 110%. And Alvin Henderson seems to be 50-50. So what does that mean for the Alabama native? Well, it's really good news one way or another because I was anticipating it too. It seemed like Penn State was going to end up finishing with its two running back commits in Tyke Hayes and maybe in the form of Jabri Wallace-Coleman, who still has an official visit lined up at the end of June. But Alvin Henderson is this lone wolf of what is he going to do at the end of the day? Because everybody that's close to Auburn, sister channel, Locked On, or brother channel, I guess, Locked On Auburn, says that it's going to happen. The other beat reporters that Zach Blackerby speaks with says that's the case. Brian Smith reports on Auburn football recruiting now and Auburn football in general and agrees that that's probably the case too. So what is going to happen? Well, he has an official visit next Friday, June 14th. So if there is news about him beforehand, I mean, don't be surprised. He's got to take the charter flight up to Happy Valley in about 7 days. I imagine if you are serious about flipping your commitment to Auburn, you're going to make a decision over the course of the next week before you get to next Friday. But as far as Kiandrea Barker goes, why this is really, really important for Penn State, because this was a prospect, again, I don't want to say that he was flaking on Penn State by any means, but he's from the state of Arkansas. He's kind of bounced around from high school to high school, and maybe there's some concerns as far as development goes or anything like that. Penn State is all in on Kiandrea Barker. Kiandrea Barker is all in on Penn State. That's what matters most at the end of the day. And Barker is extremely underrated. I mean, Barker had to sit out because of Texas high school transfer regulations, right? So he hasn't played high school football, high school tackle football for quite some time. And if you're a recruiting analyst, you have to rank the players that you watch. So if Kiandrea Barker's not playing, you can't rate him properly. You got to wait till you get to the summer camps or until he can play football again. So now he's transferred back to his native Arkansas high school. He's going to play football there for a senior season, not at Miami Central. And I think he's going to remind people why he was that highly touted to begin with, why he was being recruited by big schools in Texas, by Miami Central in Florida. Kiandrea Barker is that good. He's underrated. He will showcase his skills once he is able to hit the football field again. I mean, On3 has given him comparisons to say has elements. Not saying he is Saquon Barkley. So let's what Saquon Barkley does, pumps the brakes here, but he has elements of the game that are related to Saquon Barkley, and you don't hear that kind of praise very often. So Penn State being able to retain Kiandrea Barker is huge. It's now looking more likely that they are going to get 3 running backs in this class. And that's saying something when you have Nicholas Singleton moving on and Katron Allen most likely to move on after this season. You got a wide open starting job next year. Quentin Martin returns, Corey Smith, Cam Wallace, right? Those are the big names. London Montgomery just transferred out. You do need those 3 running back commits. 2 would have been okay, but it's not ideal. You need the third. So whether that's Alvin Henderson, whether that's Jabri Wallace-Coleman, I mean, take your pick. They're both highly touted 4-stars at the end of the day, whichever one commits. At this point in time, Wallace-Coleman and Henderson both have official visits lined up for Penn State in June. But as we've seen, in a span of 48 to 72 hours, a lot can change when it comes to recruiting here. So that's what I'm getting at. Was this a rough week for Penn State? It seemed like Clemson was eating Penn State's lunch when it came to the recruiting trail. And again, I am here to tell you that things aren't so bad. Let me explain why on the other side of this break. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. You got to download the Gametime app because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Everybody's excited about the NBA Finals. They're here, Celtics and Mavericks. Yes, I'm very excited myself. And Gametime is making getting to the NBA Finals even faster and easier than before. And get this, prices on the Gametime app actually go down as it gets closer to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, you get views from your seat in the app and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can also get flash deals as well within the app. Save even more with the in-app deals, which are exclusive on select seats ahead of a game or an event. So are you ready to snag those NBA tickets? All you got to do is download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This is bad. Clemson lands back-to-back commits, back-to-back Penn State targets. The top linebacker in the state, in the country, ends up committing to Georgia just after visiting Penn State. And I know it seems bad based on the headlines, on paper, and it's okay. Obviously, ideally, you would like a player like I'm referring to Zayden Walker, who is a 5-star and is considered one of the best, if not the best, linebacker in the nation. Let me remind you, Penn State already has 3 linebacker commits in this class, even though they're targeting another, right? There might be some plans for Deshaun Burnett to possibly move to defensive end. We'll see, and DJ McClary is taking other official visits. So that's why Penn State is recruiting another linebacker, but they already have 3 in this class, and they're definitely going to get another commit. It's just a matter of who and a matter of when. For Grayson Littleton, and people have seen the name Rowan Byrne, and that wasn't mentioned on this show. You probably weren't going to find that name mentioned on a lot of other Penn State reports, Penn State shows, because these players were not expected to land with the Nittany Lions. That's why this isn't a big deal. Littleton was projected to Alabama, ends up going to Clemson. All right. And Rowan Byrne, for the longest time, was projected to Clemson. So Clemson took care of business. Kudos to them. Littleton, 4-star cornerback. Okay, yes, ideally, you would like a player of that caliber to go to Penn State. And Byrne, depending on what recruiting site you look at, what your preference is, Rivals 24/7, hopefully not ESPN, On3, different ratings, and that's fine. Top player in New York, but a 3-star, maybe borderline a 4-star, still a quality prospect depending on where you look. But Penn State was not expected to get the commitment from either of these players. It was Littleton to Alabama, Byrne to Clemson. I know they both committed to Clemson, but if you're Alabama, this one stings a little more than in the case of Penn State. Okay. And then there's the same thing with Nolan Davenport. That was an offensive line target for Penn State. He was setting up a visit and he's been projected to Wisconsin for the longest time. And the Badgers end up getting that commitment. And as I mentioned, Zayden Walker committing to Georgia. He's from the state of Georgia. I think the fact that Penn State even got him on campus, it is a win in its own right. Like, hey, that's the kind of caliber of linebacker you can get in this class despite having 3 listed linebackers already verbally committed. I think that is a win in itself, even though you don't get the players. But Penn State is waiting for even better defensive backs, even better offensive linemen than Littleton and Byrne, guys that are higher on their big board at the end of the day. Offensive line, in-state prospect and Penn State legacy player Michael Carroll. Zaire Addison out of Florida, Malachi Goodman, who they've already hosted on campus, and they're probably going to go head-to-head with Auburn again there. Those are the names that are preferred over Rowan Byrne. And you can check the recruiting rankings, and especially a Michael Carroll. Like that, he is at the top of Penn State's big board above all else when it comes to overall prospects, but definitely offensive line. And remember, they also already have three offensive line commits too. Brady O'Hara is listed as a tight end, but projects as an offensive lineman. And then you look at cornerback. Okay, there's Brandon Finney, Antonio Branch, Darius Dixon, who's been added to this list of visitors for the weekend of June 7th. Jameer Joseph, right? So those are names that are comparable or better than Grayson Littleton. So it's no disrespect to either Byrne or Littleton. These were players that Penn State was not anticipating a commitment from. They had, they were in contact with them, they recruited them, but at the end of the day, this is going to happen. You can't land every single recruit in the class of 2025. I feel like for some people that needs to be reminded to them, and that's okay. That's okay. But it does, yes, he was just there for a visit. He commits somewhere else. What could have happened? The thing is, nothing happened because there was nothing materializing. We'll let you know. We talked about the Matt Zoller's commitment. We'll let you know if something doesn't exactly go Penn State's way. So how about an updated official visit list, since this one's kind of gone through some changes. Now Penn State doesn't have a dozen visitors anymore. They still have 10, but Jabri Wallace-Coleman has rescheduled his official visit. Obviously, Zayden Walker isn't going to be there, but they did add another prospect to the list. So guys like Kanoa Winston, who, again, cousins with KJ Winston. Both dads, both fathers are twin brothers. So there's the family connections there. I like Winston to Penn State, even though Michigan seems to be a heavy player. And do not discount Oregon and North Carolina. They added Darius Dixon, who I've mentioned in the show already, Phillip Bell, a wide receiver out of California, Jaden Woods, a defensive lineman out of the state of Kansas, Jeff Exner, wide receiver out of the state of Maryland, Jarquez Hunter out of the state of Florida. He's a defensive lineman. Matthew Alton, a wide receiver out of the state of Virginia. Josh Johnson, a cornerback out of Ohio. Mari Hills, an offensive lineman out of Maryland. And Rashad Johnson, a safety out of Florida. So that's the now official visit list. Again, so much has changed in a span of 48 to 72 hours here. But even though Wallace-Coleman isn't on this set of official visits, again, guys like Winston, I like Matthew Alton. I think Penn State has a good chance there, even though, as Brian Smith had said in our other recruiting preview, that he's quieter in terms of what he reveals to the media and any sort of interviews and stuff like that. But Winston and Exner seem to be the destination for Penn State at this given time. So that's good news. Recruiting's not all that bad, even though the headlines might seem to be that way. Now, speaking of bad headlines, the Whiteout has not been named, been tweeting about it, talking about it, posting about it on X. What I would do to fix the Whiteout: you stand up to the networks. We'll discuss that on the other side of this break. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to its peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you are into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride, or you get your money back. So with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into that MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Let's not dance around it anymore. Penn State should make Ohio State the whiteout game. Noon kickoff, 3:30, 4 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Ohio State should be the whiteout game. That's just the fact of the matter. That is your biggest game of the season. That is going to be a defining moment in the season. Penn State hasn't played Ohio State in a whiteout game since 2018. Stand up to the networks, okay? If Fox is going to put that big noon kickoff, fine. The whiteout needs to be used for your best opponent. And again, I've been going back and forth. I've tried to explain how this whole process works now because of the TV contracts, which includes the networks. And then Penn State has a preference. They want this whiteout. They want the whiteout to be earlier in the season because of weather conditions. You want it to appeal to the fan, and you want the atmosphere while at the same time setting an attendance record. So I understand all of that. I get it. But based on social media response and just kind of fans saying, Minnesota and Iowa didn't exactly have the same flair, and now we're going to Illinois potentially, make Ohio State the whiteout. Make Ohio State the whiteout. Okay. Do not let Fox bully you. Okay. Do what you want. It's your schedule, right? It's your home games. The whiteout is going to continue to lose its prestige. Okay, I talked about that with Tom Hannafin over on the State of State podcast. I encourage you to go check out that episode, a 30-minute conversation about specifically the whiteout and Penn State's schedule for the 2024 season. But yes, the whiteout isn't diminished, but it's diminishing. It's losing its prestige. It hasn't lost its prestige. It's losing its prestige. That's supposed to be the biggest game of the year. Everybody talks about it, and you're going to choose Illinois as the whiteout opponent. I hope that isn't the case, just because the forecast, I don't even know that the forecast is that bad. I don't think the forecast is that bad in November, early November anyway. But do not let Fox bully you. Save it for the best game. You have other variations. You have the stripe out. You have the helmet stripe where you make the 50-yard line blue. It seems like everybody that was involved in this conversation was disappointed in the fact that Illinois was even a possibility. Other outlets, Onward State and an ode to Penn State, don't make Illinois the whiteout, please. You know how you fix this? Make Illinois the helmet stripe game, not the stripe out. Save that for Washington. I think that would be a good game theme for Washington. Make Illinois the helmet stripe game. So, okay, if NBC prefers to put that one at night, there you have the aesthetics. It's in the warmer weather. Just the 50-yard line is blue, but everybody else is dressed in white for essentially a pseudo whiteout here. Okay, so it works. Then you have the whiteout for Ohio State. That is a season-defining game. Illinois is not a season-defining game. And if an Illinois fan wants to go in the comments section, oh, well, they beat Penn State back in 2021, 9 overtime game. Don't you remember? I absolutely remember. I also remember what happened last year where Penn State put up a lot of points out in Champaign. So Penn State's better than Illinois. That was a one-time thing in 2021. This Penn State team is much better than that team from 3 years ago. So you can have the aesthetics with the helmet stripe game against Illinois, nicer weather, but you're still going to have a record crowd attendance because it's Penn State versus Ohio State, because it's at Beaver Stadium. Then you add the whiteout element to it, and it gets even better. I know that Penn State would prefer to have the whiteout earlier in the season. I understand that, but you got to use it for Ohio State. You just have to. And if Fox ends up getting the game, so be it. It's not like the whiteout has never been at noon before. 2015 against Michigan. It's not like it hasn't been at 3:30 either. When Joe Paterno was coaching, Notre Dame, Alabama, it was saved strategically for the best opponent. Continue that tradition. And that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Please leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed the conversation. Be active, be a part of the conversation down in the comments section. Let me know what you think is best for the whiteout game, what game theme you would associate with any of Penn State's 7 home games, and what you think about the state of Penn State recruiting. And if you're not already, become an everyday or subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. And speaking of conversations, I'm excited for next week because we'll have one of the first where we talk to a former coach or someone associated with a current player on the team and how they can have an impact in this upcoming season. That first one is Bo Pribula. We're going to have that for you to start next week, so keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Once again, thanks so much for checking out this episode of Locked On Nittany Lions. Don't forget, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV. In the free Fire TV channels app, Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, talking about the biggest stories in sports with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. You can find Locked On Sports Today now available on YouTube and on the free Fire TV channels app.